Hi, third grade. Let's try something a little different. Did you ever wonder how they make things that you use every day, like this pencil? How do they make this pencil? Or how do they make this mouse? We're going to learn how factories work. You're going to create a factory that makes something of your choice. So let's come down to the board and see what I'm talking about. We're going to design a factory. Sounds simple, but it really isn't, because what you need to do is figure out what you want your factory to make. I am now going to put you in charge of a factory. You're the owner. You're responsible for whatever comes out of the factory. What do you want to make? That's a big loaded question, because you can make absolutely anything. Let's say you want to learn how to make a roll of tape. If I wanted to make this roll of tape, what would I need? Well, I would need the plastic. The plastic for the container that holds the roll of tape. I'm going to need metal, because this little metal tooth is what cuts the tape. I'm going to need tape. How do they make tape? And I'm going to need that plastic roll that holds the tape in the dispenser. That seems like a lot of items. But once you decide what it is you're going to make, we need to figure out how to make it. Now, just a hint, it can be imaginary, because we aren't really going to go out and build this factory tomorrow. If you've watched the rest of the videos that I've included in your Google Classroom link, then you will see different ways of making some different items. What I'd like you to do is try to make something that was not seen in any of the videos. So please don't try to make crayons. But you can learn how to make markers, or you can make paintbrushes. Maybe you want to show us how to make a paintbrush. Or maybe you want to show us how they make the stylus that you use for your iPad, or your sneakers, or glasses, or a stuffed animal. You can make just about anything. On our piece of paper, we're going to design the building that makes the item that you're going to create. We're going to call that the product. So your factory is going to make the product. The factory can be just a simple rectangle. But if you want to get fancy, your factory could look like the outside. The outside of the factory could look like the thing that you're making. So let's say you're going to make this roll of tape. What if my factory looked like the roll of tape? I could do that too. Let's talk about some of the things that make the materials move through the factory. If this is my building, I'm going to divide my building up into a few floors. So the first floor, the second floor, and the third floor. Again, you can make as many different floors in your building as you like. We're going to pretend this entire side of the wall of my factory is glass, so I can see everything that's going on. What are some of the ways that things travel through a building? You could have a person moving things through a building. This He-Man is carrying a box. Stuff. What else? What if I want to take things from this floor and carry them to this floor? How could I get this little man up to the second and third floors? What if I build him some steps? What if I give him a rope to climb up? Let's make it a rope ladder. I could give him a ladder. What if I give him an elevator? Well, if I draw an elevator, I have to remember the elevator needs to take up one entire side of the building, because it needs to open on every floor. And then you can add the details that make it special, and maybe buttons on the side. All the details are what's important in this project. What if I decide that I need a simple machine? This is a form of simple machine. Does anyone know what this is? If I put something on one side of this board and I have, let's say, a giant foot, and my giant foot is going to stomp down on this side, what's going to happen? This box is going to get thrown up in the air. That will take it to the third floor. This simple machine is called a lever, but what we know it as is a seesaw or a teeter-totter. We don't have those in the playground anymore, but you can see them all over the country in any different playgrounds around the country. What if I decide to have a big cannon? And I'm going to shoot things to the next building or to the next floor. You can see it can get a little silly. Once you've figured out how to move things back and forth from first, second, and third floors, how are you going to move things back and forth in the floor itself? There are a couple more simple machines that we can use. You've probably used this one before and didn't even know it. This is what makes a tank go. The treads on the side of a tank, this is a conveyor belt. When you put something on one end of the belt and the rollers roll, the item moves. Did you know an escalator is nothing more than a conveyor belt? But the conveyor belt has steps for your person to stand on when you go up the escalator. What happens to those steps when you come around the other side? They just close up and then they open up again when you come up the front. So you could put things on a conveyor belt to move it back and forth. Do you know what this is? This is another simple machine. This is called a pulley. When somebody holds this end of the rope and pulls, your bucket or container will go up in the air. You can use this a lot in tree houses. Now that we've seen how things move around a factory, let's see some examples to show you what I'm talking about. This is Huffman's Pencil Manufacturing Company. To be honest, I don't really know how they make pencils. So when I created this one, I just made some stuff up. First, I gave myself a storage room, and in there are the boxes that contain wood and paint and the lead that used to make the pencil. All of the workers in my factory are robots, and they have a light on top of their head so that they can see where they're going in the factory. These guys take the trees out of the boxes, and they carry them up the steps. And then they're placed inside the chop-o-matic lead adder. So they chop the trees down inside this machine, and out pops pencils with the lead already added. I don't know how that process works. It's super secret, and it happens in this machine. Then our little robot uses his pulley to pull the bucket of pencils up in the air, where they tip onto our conveyor belt, and they go up in the air through the painting station. There's just an arm from the ceiling for my paint. And they drop on the second conveyor belt, which takes them to this guy who puts on the erasers. He hands them to this guy who puts them in a box. The boxes travel up the conveyor belt to the last guy who puts them in an even larger box. And he hands them out the window to the bird, the robot bird, who takes the boxes of pencil down to the delivery truck. And our little delivery truck is, of course, shaped like a pencil. Let's look at one more. This one isn't quite finished yet. This is a box factory, and the boxes are making boxes in the box factory. The path starts from the storage room, travels through the folder. They take them up the steps. This guy looks like he might be a supervisor because he's drinking a cup of coffee. They go through the drying process, and then they get shot up in the air. I don't know if you can see that line. Let me make it a little darker. He throws them up in the air to the man who puts them in the painting spray booth, where they go into the vacuum storage tube, and they come up to the guy on the roof, who then takes them down and out of the factory. This one isn't quite finished yet, but you get the idea. Let's see what you can make in a factory of your creation.